Rock Stories with the Brumster. That's with two M's. How you doing? Welcome. Hey, if you just see one M, get out of Dodge. You're listening to the only show on the radio or podcast where we focus on the fans' perspective, real rock stories with the Brumster. Here at the Rock Stories with the Brumster YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, share it, and down in the comment section, what would you like to hear about? Do you have any awesome concert or rock memories? All these years I've been in radio, I've got to go behind the scenes and hang out with rock stars. It's one of the funnest things that I get to look back on from my radio career, so I love to share that with you. But more importantly, we want to hear your stories of your favorite rock band memories, concert memories, music memories, the memories that last a lifetime. That's what it's all about here at Rock Stories with the Brumster. Real rock stories from the fans' perspective, also available at rockradio559.com on demand, but you can also check it out there at the Rock Stories with the Brumster YouTube channel. Today, we have an awesome guest. That's fantastic, man. We're ready to rock. Thomas Ian Nicholas from the Thomas Nicholas Band. He has got some stories to share with us. Tom, welcome to Rock Stories with the Brumster, man.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so happy to be here and happy to chat about my rock memories. Certainly, I play rock music because I have some good experiences and memories myself. So,
all right on Rock Stories with the Brumster. We've got Tom from the Thomas Nicholas Band here with us today, and we're so glad that you're here to share your rock memories in the time machine. But let's start here in the present. You mentioned that you're a musician, you're a rocker yourself. Tell our audience all about your current rock adventures, Tom.
Well, my band with the very interesting name Thomas Nicholas Band, since I couldn't come up with a cool name and just had a little help from my mom on this one, basically because she named me. Anyway.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. Happy Mom's Day. So, yeah, I mean, we play, like, I guess what could be considered 90s rock or alternative rock. We kind of dip our toes into pop punk. We don't get too emo, but maybe there's some emotions in there. And I'm working on my 7th album, and I've probably at this point since about 2008 played, I don't know, over 800 shows in about 12 different countries. So
wow.
It's more than just a pastime. It's, something that I love, something that's near and dear to me is to get out there and help create new memories for people that want to come to my shows.
Thomas Ian Nicholas with us from the Thomas Nicholas Band at Rock Stories with the Brumster, real rock stories from the fans' perspective. And no greater fan than the actual musician who gets up there, puts together the blood, sweat, and tears. You're talking about going around different countries. I mean, this really is a passion of yours, man.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. That's for sure. And probably one of the craziest ones, besides our two biggest stomping grounds is, and this is going to sound really weird, Illinois and the UK.
What a spread, right?
Yeah, and they're about the same size, right? So our craziest overseas tour was when we had the privilege and honor of playing for Navy Entertainment back in 2019, and we went to Italy, we went to Bahrain, and then we went to Djibouti, and we played 4 shows over there for the troops. It was pretty awesome.
That's awesome, man. Right on.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and I don't even count the first 3 albums that you'll never hear. That's the equivalent of my musical college was the first 3 albums that I put my blood, sweat, and tears into, released them, and then was like, okay, I'm destroying all copies and starting over.
Right. That's in the experience I mean, in the actual living it out, those first three were all practice, learning how to do it, how not to do it, learning from your mistakes, improving. I mean, a lot of improvement, and then it's like, whoa, I know what I want to do now. I know what I want to do now, right?
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing is that it feels like such a failure at the time because you don't make them with the intention of learning. You make them because you're like, I'm going to go out and make the greatest rock record of all time. And then you feel accomplished and you listen to it like a year later and you're like, this sucks.
That's how I felt. I in another life, I work in the battery and the solar industry, and I worked at a battery distributor and wrote a book. Everything I know currently about batteries on Amazon. I just wrote one and said, and I was very proud of it. And a year or two later, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, it's so amateurish, man. It's like, but you know what? You put out some albums. I wrote a book, right? It's like, we only live once, and you're really living out your passion. That's, I mean, not wasting any time at all on this earth, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about just, learning through experience and enjoying the journey. And that's kind of, one of the things that music has become more for me. I think when I first started out, I had these visions of grandeur, and there have been moments of that for sure. But I've kind of learned to enjoy what's going on when it's happening versus always looking to the next moment. And that's kind of true for, my acting career for the last, 36 years, as well as just life in general. It's just learning how to there's like three levels of it, right? We're going to talk about like rock memories, right? But the only way you make memories, true ones, is when you're truly in the moment. They're not when you're looking too far forward.
Or through your phone. Like, it's very cool, this technology we have, right? It's like, but they showed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record being broke by LeBron James. And it's like, wait a second, this isn't exactly the same thing, I love rock and roll. I know you love rock and roll. It's all about those great memories that we get to share together. And when you're creating those memories and you're living in the moment, you're not like the fans who are at that NBA game recording it on their phone. You're actually living in the moment like we did when we were younger, right? Like, I hate to be an old fogey, but before phones existed, like how that went down. And lately, some places, I heard Garth Brooks just did it. Joe Rogan does it, his comedy club. People are starting to do it. They're starting to make people put their phones into this locked purse that they get back when they leave. So when they're at a venue or at a show, they have to actually experience it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a crazy thing how attached to our phones that we have become, considering that, we both grew up without that technology. And to be fair, even though my son who's 11 owns a phone, I don't allow him to just be on it whenever he wants, because I want him to have the experience of like growing up the way that we did. So he can access this technology and communicate with his friends, but he can't just have it in his pocket 24/7.
Right. Exactly. Discipline, priorities, all that good stuff, and a little bit of fun, mindless scrolling. As long as it's not all day, I love it. So your favorite rock memories, rock stories with the Brumster. Thom with us, Ian Nicholas for the official version of the Thomas Nicholas Band with us today. Thanks, Thom. Appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here.
So, favorite rock memories? Talk a little bit about that. Thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, man. So glad to be here. Well, I'm going to keep this one in line with what kind of started this whole opportunity for me to be on the show in the first place, and that is that, I've got this show coming up in Visalia with the Fast Times Band at Fox Theater. So I just played a show with them in March here in LA at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And I'm going to tie this all together right now because my first ever concert that I ever went to as a rock fan was to see my favorite band in 1995, the Offspring.
Oh, right on.
At the Whiskey A Go-Go. Back, like I said, in 95. Before I could drive, it was a K-Rock radio event. And so my mom, of course, drove me to the venue, but didn't feel comfortable with me staying by myself. So I wanted to be in the mosh pit. So she was in the mosh pit with me. And this is where not my very first, but one of my most memorable rock and roll experiences is not judging a book by its cover. This is the lesson I learned. So there was this dude who was in the pit with us, leather jacket, tatted up, huge orange mohawk, saw me, 15, and my mom, and he goes, "Hey." And I'm like, look up. I'm like, this dude looks, pretty scary. And he goes, "If anyone touches you," and he points at my mom, he's like, "I'm going to beat the shit out of him." And sure enough, he did. My mom was standing in the pit at an Offspring show, and she had like her own safe space because this dude would pummel anyone that got near my mom. And he was also like, when I was moshing, like picking me up off the floor, and it was the coolest night ever. And I still have my, signed Offspring T-shirt hanging in like a glass, poster thing on my wall from that first rock show experience at the Whiskey.
If anyone touches your mom, I am going to kick their ass. I mean, man, that dude was for real, and he backed it up. Your mom and you end up having this totally killer rock and roll memory together. How awesome is that, dude?
Yeah, it was rad. It was rad. And, I've told that story at least 100 times, and it's one of my favorite memories. And so it was pretty cool. It's cool every time I get to go back and play the Whiskey with my band, like I just did with Fast Times, because I always think of that moment of like, man, I was in this pit when I was 15 with my mom, moshing and being protected by like my guardian angel older brother, person with a giant orange mohawk.
Oh, big old giant mohawk, like a crazy man, but ends up being the coolest dude in the world and protected you guys. That's pretty cool, man. And Whiskey A Go-Go, you're playing there with Fast Times. Coming up, Visalia, Fox Theater, you're playing there as well. Do you have dates by chance? Forgive me, I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We're playing Saturday, June 10th at the Fox Theater, so I'm once again getting the chance to open up for Fast Times Band. So it's kind of like a backwards time trajectory. So, we start in present day, my band goes on, we take you back to the 90s.
And did you
and
say...
then time goes on, they take you back to the 80s.
Did you say Hanford?
No, I just said I said we're in current time, like...
No, I
like
mean, is it Visalia Fox Theater or Hanford Fox Theater for our listeners?
Oh, Visalia Fox Theater.
Oh, my bad. I thought you said Hanford. Yeah, Visalia Fox Theater, folks, happening on June 10th, Saturday, June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. Get your tickets. Fast Times and Thomas Nicholas Band is going to be there as well. Tom with us right now. Sorry to interrupt, my friend. I just wanted to make sure the audience does not miss that awesome show. Continue.
Yeah, no worries. It's going to be fun. Like I said, we're going to take you back to the 90s, and then Fast Times will take you back to the 80s. So come time travel with us.
That is so badass. This is like a time machine right here at Rock Stories with the Brumster with the Thomas Nicholas Band namesake. Thomas Ian Nicholas rocking with us, and you're going to be with Fast Times. And you go backwards in time from the 90s music and rocking like crazy. Y'all grunge as well, I assume, correct? I mean you're hitting some Nirvana maybe. I mean, what can people expect from the 90s?
Well, I had this tour that kind of sparked this whole idea, and obviously there's sort of a a whole reason for it. It's all organic. So I started my band, started playing music in 97, finally found my sound by like 2008. But at the same time that I was finishing my first album was when I did the first American Pie. And at that time, my band sounded like Switchfoot. So we didn't really fit into the realm of, the soundtrack of American Pie. And so each time that I would do one of the Pie movies, I would try to like get my songs in the soundtrack. And each time we weren't quite the right fit until I did American Reunion. And by then I was working with the bass player from Puddle of Mud. And so we wrote this song that was very like pop punk, realm, and we finally landed a song on the soundtrack. So that was back in 2012 for the fourth American Pie movie. So I was going overseas to tour in England, and I got this chance to play universities. And they were like, hey, can you do like cover songs? I said, no, man, we're an original band. We don't do covers. And they said, oh, that's too bad because we have these shows at these universities. It's 2,000 cap rooms, totally sold out, 10 shows. And then when they started talking about the budget, I go, well, like, do we get to pick our own cover songs or are you going to pick them for me? And so, I was like, well, how do I make cover songs make sense for my all original band? So I incepted the idea of the Frat Party album, which is me picking all of my favorite songs from the American Pie soundtrack albums. So we play Blink-182, Sum 41, Lit, we got Alien Ant Farm, and we kind of crossed the gambit, hit James Band, even though it's like early 90s. But, things that should have been on the albums as well, like Fountains of Wayne. Though we don't sing Stacy's mom, we sing Stifler's mom, because that's what they should have written it as to begin with.
Oh, totally. How appropriate, man.
Yeah, and that's not just because Jennifer Coolidge just won a bunch of, awards or anything, because we've been singing Stifler's mom for, at least, since 2016.
So basically it's the favorites, Frat Party style, of the American Pie soundtrack, in addition to other killer 90s rock songs, all in one compilation, bringing people back in time to the 1990s before they then go back further into time, into the 1980s with Fast Times as well. That's awesome. June 10th, everyone, get your tickets, Visalia Fox Theater. June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. Get your tickets to see a hell of a show. I mean, it's really an experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a good time, and I'm going to do a special meet and greet after the show. So I always like to give people a chance to come and say hello. I know that a lot of people are still discovering my band for the first time, and that's okay. I'm all right with it. So if you're coming out, you can tell me, hey, I didn't know you had a band, and here we are. So June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. We'll be there.
Looking at Fast Times, because I assume you enjoy staying on the time machine and experiencing it with everyone else as they go back into the 1980s, right? What's your favorite part of the Fast Time show? I know so many to choose from, right? What's your favorite?
When we did the show at the Whiskey back in March, the theme of the night, because they do this weekly thing at the Whiskey. So the theme on that particular night was movie soundtrack night. So I actually jammed a song with them up on stage, which was awesome. And so that was probably my favorite moment of the night was, jamming and singing with the Fast Times band, because they're such amazing musicians.
As a fan coming and seeing the show, again, folks, Visalia Fox Theater, June 10th. Check it out. The Thomas Nicholas Band, taking you to the 90s, favorite American Pie soundtrack jams in addition to other 90s awesome music, and then go back in time even further to the 1980s with Fast Times. On June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater, get your tickets. Thom with us today from the Thomas Nicholas Band. It's a real experience, isn't it? It's not just the music. I mean, you guys are even dressed up to really play the part, right?
I mean, I have my standard rock and roll outfit that's very reminiscent of, Dave Grohl. I just kind of am in all black all the time. Johnny, though, from the Fast Times Band, dresses up as Spicoli, for very obvious reasons. So the song that I got to sing with them in March was "I'll Melt with You," which the kind of fun thing about that is my friend's band, Bowling for Soup, had done a cover of that. And speaking of Bowling for Soup and rock memories, their big song, and the 80s, they have a big song called 1985. And recently, last year, I should say, I did a parody of that song with Jarrett Reddick, the lead singer of Bowling for Soup. So I wrote it with the band that I was doing the parody of. So it's called 1999. So this is kind of all like intermingling 80s and 90s, right? Because here we got Fast Times playing 80s. I'm playing 90s. I got Bowling for Soup's 1985, but I re-upped it to 1999. But there's a fun story. Like, so Jarrett had this, the lead singer of Bowling for Soup had this podcast called Jarrett Goes to the Movies, named after, their Bowling for Soup Goes to the Movies album from way before. And so we watched American Pie and did it with a live audience, and we were like pausing, talking over the movie and doing our podcast while everyone was there watching the film. So afterwards we played a show, and Jarrett goes, I sang Stifler's Mom, so he sings 1985, and halfway through he goes, because we're feeling all sorts of nostalgic just having watched American Pie. He goes, we should sing lyrics about American Pie. And we tried it on the spot and failed miserably. But I thought that was such a cool idea that I texted him lyrics the next day. And he's like, yeah, that'd be funny. Let's make a TikTok video. So I made the TikTok video, and it got 500,000 views. And he goes, okay, come to Dallas. Let's up the lyrics up a little bit and record it in the studio. So talk about turning a rock and roll experience into a recorded song. And that's kind of like just another fun memory that I have.
Oh, wow. That is like rock and roll magic, man. Wow, that is fantastic. And there's no such thing as good luck. It's really when opportunity and hard work meet, someone once said. So you're working hard, you've got a passion, and then that crossroads happens to where it turns into something, and it did. And wow, opportunity, begets even more creativity, right? Because of the necessity to get it done at that point. Did it all get compiled real fast? It was kind of a weird, wild ride, because when I first got the opportunity to do the podcast with Jarrett, I was promoting my last film, Adverse, that I had, that Mickey Rourke had starred in, and Lou Diamond Phillips and Penelope Ann Miller and Sean Astin. So I was one of the producers of it, and I was the main role in it. So it was very different from American Pie, a drama, like action film, right? And so when they asked me to come watch American Pie, I turned it down, because I was like, well, I'm not doing anything about American Pie and nostalgia right now. I'm focused on this new thing. So they thought I was a jerk. And so then they went and they watched American Pie and talked about me being a jerk for saying no to the show. So then cut to a year later, I get this offer to do this event in Dallas, and they're like, hey, we want to link you up with Jarrett and do this thing with his podcast. So Jarrett hears about it. He goes, that can't be true. That guy's a jerk. He doesn't want to talk about American Pie. But then we started chatting, and he realized it was just this moment in time, and that I wasn't a jerk, and we immediately hit it off, and now we've been the best of friends ever since. So, oh, wow. You were cool with talking about American Pie. It didn't seem so at the moment. So it was like oddly taken as such, but then you guys make a connection and bada bing, bada boom. Now you're like best of buds. How cool is that, man?
Yeah, but that just goes to show, like, when, you're going to hit it off with somebody, you can't even get in your own way because the opportunity will just come around again. So we don't have to kick ourselves about missed opportunities, do we?
No. If it's meant to be, it happens. I mean,
if it's meant to be, it'll keep coming at you until you say yes.
It never gives up. It never gives up. Oh, I love it. I love it. Rock Stories with the Brumpster, Thomas Ian Nicholas of the Thomas Nicholas Band, opening, taking you through the 90s, opening up for the 1980s super band, The Place at the Whiskey a Go-Go, and Thom does as well with his band there, taking you 90s and into the 80s with Fast Times. That's right, the lead singer even dresses up, and it looks like Spicoli. Jeff, check this out. Spicoli is a time-honored character. You look at Sean Penn, to this day, you cannot think of anything but Spicoli. And what a perfect character for that lead singer to play. And so you got up on stage, you're rocking music there, you're doing parodies, 1985 to 1999. And wow, man. And all of this really born out of American Pie, basically, to a degree?
Yeah, to a degree. It's one of those funny things where at the time, when I was trying to get my song in the soundtrack, I didn't really give much credence to how important those films were and how synonymous they were with pop punk, because they kind of hit the scene at the same time, so they're synonymous. They're hand in hand together. And it wasn't until probably about 2015, I was touring over in the UK, and I played this festival, like mainly, and there was mainly like pop punk people there. We were opening up for the Ataris. And everyone was like, what are you doing here? Like, because I'm the dude from the movie, right? I played Kevin. And then I was like, oh, my band's playing. And then I started to realize, like, and as people gravitated toward the band at this festival, that there was just this synergy with American Pie and pop punk and my band. And I it took me 20 years, I guess, to figure it out. But here I am.
That is too cool, man. Rock Stories with the Brumpster, Thomas Ian Nicholas from the Thomas Nicholas Band, 1990s, taking you through the really frat party style. They're special picks for you, so be there June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater, off of the American Pie soundtrack and other rock and roll jams from the 90s, and then into the 80s with Fast Times. June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. Get your tickets. This guy's rocking with us today with his cool memories, his favorite rock stories, rock and roll memories from the past, sharing them with you. I love that part about this show, Thom. I love that part about this show, that it's from the fans' perspective. Lots of shows out there with artists telling their favorite memory stories. I love watching the Sammy Hagar one where he drives around like Guy Fieri style in the red car and goes and talks to everyone. I love that one too. Basically, it's like a rip off of Guy Fieri's diners, drive-in and dives, right? Except for it's just going and talking with his rock and roll friends. I love that show, but I was like, I need to create a show that's from the fans' perspective, Like we all have that friend that's sitting around air guitaring and stuff in the corner and got the best, coolest stories to tell around the campfire. And that's what we're doing here, man. We're sharing from the fans' perspective. That's pretty cool. Do you like that? Because I know that's what you're celebrating there, is what the fans want. They want to get in this time machine and feel what it feels like, or what it felt like back then, right? Creating that feeling for your fans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that you'll find that when you talk to, any musician, no matter what they've achieved, they're still also a big fan of music. Maybe it's like, obviously not just of themselves. We're not that self-absorbed, but of other people's music. And I have so many great experiences, as an audience member of shows, which is something we can all relate to, or, the countless times that I've snuck backstage to meet the artist, like when I met Bruce Springsteen at Dodger Stadium in 2006.
No way. You saw the boss? Right on, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I shook Clarence's hand. This is before Clarence had passed, and may he rest in peace. Man, that dude's hand, like he could have wrapped around my hand twice. That dude had the biggest hands. And so, yeah, it was cool. Like, we had these, I got backstage passes, but, at those big concerts, or like stadium shows, there's like two backstages. There's like the backstage that they give like everyone who's a VIP access to, but none of the musicians come back there. And then there's like the real backstage. So I went to the fake backstage and I was like, well, this is BS. And then I figured out a way to sneak back, to the real backstage.
Behind the scenes, there's nothing behind the curtain. There's nothing behind the curtain. What is this, Wizard of Oz? There's like a whole nother curtain with another reality going on where it's the real backstage, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, so the crazy thing was this. I was sitting like pretty close up, like probably like row 19 or something like that, like right in like the front. And right in front of me was Doris Roberts, who you remember from Everybody Loves Raymond. She was the mom. And so she was singing every single song. And so when the concert finished, we both went to go backstage, but they wouldn't let her pass. But I could have access to get to the fake backstage. But they wouldn't let her pass. And so I kind of like stood up for her and I was like, guys, this is Doris Roberts. Like, you got to let her back. Like, come on. I have access. Like, I vouched for her. So I got her past like the first security. So she goes left and I go right. So I go to the fake backstage and realize that it's BS. And so I go, well, where was Doris going? So I cut back to like see where she went, and she was in the real backstage. They're like, sorry, you can't come back here. And Doris sees me, and she vouched for me, and I got in.
Nice. So she returned the favor. Like, how perfect the timing that you were there to get her past the first hurdle, and then she was there to get you past the second hurdle, man.
Totally. So I, of course, missed no opportunity. I was standing idly by while he was like, Bruce was talking to Matthew McConaughey, and then I waited till the conversation was done. I kind of introduced myself, and I was like, hey, Bruce, I just want to let you know it's my dream, with your permission, of course, to one day portray you in a film. And he turned to John Landau, his manager. He put his arm around me. He goes, what do you think? You think we look alike? And Landau just looked at back and forth between the two of us, like back, forth, speechless. And you can just tell, because we're about the same height. So, if I just like put my lower jaw forward, I'm Bruce, man.
The Boss. I mean, I'm assuming that's what it's going to be called, The Boss. Or I mean, I just like the way it sounds to say that, The Boss. I mean, you gotta love that name, or whatever you want to call it. That movie's going to be phenomenal because all the big movies are out. The Whitney Houston one right now. Saw the one about Michael Jackson. I mean, all these different movies coming out about artists, or you see the specials coming on AXS, music TV, or, stuff like that. And we get to find out the true behind the scenes story. So basically, I mean, that's what we're going to get. I mean, the Ray Charles movie, just all these different movies about rock stars. I love the one about, James Brown, man. That was awesome on Netflix. Oh, phenomenal. So you're going to do you think it's going to eventually happen, a movie on The Boss?
I mean, it's been, something on my, on my radar, my sort of, my idea, my vision for forever. I mean, at the time, this is 2006. I was 26 years old. I could have I could have portrayed him in like the, Greetings from Asbury Park or the Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle days, or even like the in-between, Steel Mill with, him busting and like never giving up during that whole time period. Now I'm 43. I'm like, well, I guess with CG I could still play him during those times. So I don't know. I mean, the crazy thing is I'm such a fan of the Boss that I kind of also don't want to make the movie because I feel like every time they make the movie about the artist somehow dies before the film's finished. You ever notice that?
Almost like a curse, in a sense.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to put, Bruce in his coffin. I already saw him pop out of one at the sports arena in, 2017? I saw him play on Halloween night, Halloween Eve, and that's how he entered the stage. He had the road crew bring him out in a coffin, and they lifted the lid, and he just jutted his hand out, and they put a guitar in it, and he rose from the dead.
That is a trip. I wouldn't even imagine that Bruce would do that. That is so cool. That's got to take everyone by surprise. You're seeing that come up. The last thing you're thinking is the Boss is in there. Oh, my God. Wow.
Totally. Yeah, so I mean, it's in the, the realm of things that I would love to do. I have no idea, how realistic it is, but hey,
the Elvis movie just came out. The Elvis movie was amazing. Like these types of movies are really, they're in right now. They're popular right now, get these.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. Kind of just like becoming friends with Jarrett Reddick. No, even me getting in my own way didn't stop us being friends later.
That is so true, man. If it's destiny, you can't even mess it up. And God will show you that sometimes. He did to me one time. I got my job, my big break to go to Classic Rock, 95.7 The Fox in Fresno. And I loved it, but I was overslept because I worked multiple jobs and ended up, not making it to my first shift. The guy told me, this was back when there was no computer, so you had to have someone in the building hitting buttons or there would be dead air of every single song, every single sounder, like just nonstop, just running the whole thing, just play by play, song by song, sound by sound. And so there was no computers doing it when I did it. And so someone covered my shift and didn't tell the boss and didn't get me fired. And then the same thing happened again the next week. For some reason, I didn't have transportation, and I showed up like 2.5, 3 hours late on my shift. The same guy goes, "I covered you again, man. You're going to be great here. Don't worry about it." I'm like, whoa, I can't even mess this up. And that's where the Brumster was born. So, I mean, right? If it's meant to be, you can't even mess it up, right?
Totally. It's one of those funny things where we stress ourselves out about it, like trying to control every little detail. And then, no matter what, you're shown at any point in time that you can kind of like, steer the boat enough to go in a certain direction, but you can't really like control the lane.
Right. Hold on. Get my magic wand out. No, exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Voila. Magic. So, speaking of movie magic, anything, coming to fruition with the potential TV show, TV series this summer? You were alluding to that earlier. I know we might not be able to talk about all the details, but are you excited?
I'm pretty stoked. Yeah, it's I shot this first season of a new TV series that I executive produced and play one of the main characters in. We've got an amazing cast. So the show is called Underdeveloped, and it stars myself. It stars Thom Arnold, Mark Pellegrino from Supernatural, David Koechner from The Office, David Henry from Wizards of Waverly Place. I got my buddies like Sam Levine and my friend Shelley Regner in there. Just an all-out, like, amazing cast. And, it will be the pilot will be able to be viewed this summer in July. I can't say which major streaming network it will be available to be seen on because we're still finalizing the deal. But it's about a group of, well, it's a mockumentary of these producers that are forced to work together in a production company. So it's basically like The Office, but inside the entertainment industry. And we shot Warner Brothers lot, and it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait for people to see it.
I'm cracking up because I could just imagine the stories and the drama, all the different characters. Like, it reminds me a lot of back when I worked at the different radio stations with all the different characters floating around those places and, the different interactions and side stories going on. You're never going to have any issue continuing to write good content there, huh?
Totally. You mentioned that, and that just makes me think of like WKRP in Cincinnati.
Dude, rest in peace. My friend Carl Kawasaki, he did the overnight shift, and so I was at the Fox doing evenings, and Carl would come in, and this guy, because again, you had to be there the whole entire shift in old school radio. There was no computers. The song was on the CD when I did it, or on a cart, which was like an 8-track that had the song on it. And you had to hit the button for that cart, hit the CD with the sound, the cart with the sounder, hit the CD with the song, introduce it, have the tape over here that you're splicing together with a razor blade and a wax pencil to get it. I mean, there was no voice, software going on at that time. This was old school radio. And so Carl Kawasaki, he just passed recently, some health complications he was going through, but the guy was just so cool. But he was this character, this nerd kind of dude that was like a big fella, a little bit obese, glasses, and his name was Carl Kawasaki, but they called him Carl Kawasaki. And he would like autopilot it on the air, like he would start, 95.7 the Fox, Carl Kawasaki, here's Eddie Money, take me home tonight. And that was the way he did. Then he would just immediately turn down the volume and have his TV going, or talking to someone, like two cell phones, talking to chicks like that were calling up and trying to get him to play songs, and like hitting on chicks. And then he'd have this gigantic fanny pack, and like you can just imagine, right, the character, and this gigantic 94-ounce, soda from 7-Eleven or whatever. And my God, man, he was just such a character. I would just laugh my ass off. But this is what you're talking about. You're going to create characters that will make people laugh, and because they can connect with that, right?
Yeah, well, they're basically a cast of characters that are all flawed, and aren't we all? So it makes them super relatable. No one is, a glossy version of themselves. We're just all, trudging our way through it, and it's pretty entertaining to watch. In fact, my son is acting in the second episode, and he plays Thom Arnold's son on the show. So it's pretty cool that my son is following in my footsteps as an actor.
Thomas Ian Nicholas from the Thomas Nicholas Band, playing alongside Fast Times, June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. Here with us today, Thom Nicholas, Rock Stories with the Brumster, real rock stories from the fans' perspective. Working on your 7th album, man. You mentioned earlier the first 3 really got you tuned up. Now you're on number 7. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, we don't count the first 3. If I did, I'd be technically working on my 10th album. So we'll just call it 7. The first 3 were, College Without the Loan. But I've written a few songs for it so far. I wrote one brand new song with Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup. Wrote a song with Ace Enders from the Early November. Matt Kennedy from The Dangerous Summer. And I'm going to be writing with Tom Higginson from the Plain White Tees, and AJ and Jeremy Popoff from Lit. So there's going to be some good collaborations on the album, and I will be, I'm not sure when I'm going to finish it up, but I'm just kind of taking my time on this one and writing with some of my friends sort of when our schedule allows. And then once I kind of finish, writing with all my friends, I'll sort of sit back and assess the damage and then figure out when I'm going to get into the studio and record it all.
What do you prefer, Thom? Thom Nicholas with us today on Rock Stories with the Brumster. Thom, what do you prefer? The music or the acting, or do you just is it equal?
I prefer them both for different reasons. Certainly, from the standpoint of writing a song and recording it, it's a hell of a lot easier than writing and filming a movie or a TV show. A lot less time needed to make 5 minutes of audio than it is 22 to 90 minutes of video and audio and sound design. But the thing that I love about music that I don't get in acting is the live show aspect. I mean, granted, I know I could do like plays and all that stuff, but I haven't. But the interaction, the live, the unscripted live. So even doing a play wouldn't be the same thing, right? Unless it was a full-on improv show, because it's being up on stage and performing, and then the in-between banter and stories that I pick or whatever interactions happen that are just in the moment. Those are just like some of my favorite moments at shows, and when stuff goes wrong, that's my favorite part, because I don't know, when things are perfect, you don't make great memories. When things go imperfectly, you never forget it.
Etched in there for a lifetime. Underdeveloped, the TV series coming up. Do you get that feedback there? Is there a live studio audience, or is it recorded without an audience?
No, Underdeveloped was it's a mockumentary style, like shot similar to The Office. So we shot it on the Warner Brothers lot. No live studio audience, just a single cam show.
Right. Because you're mocking it and you're making it just like the Office, so it'll make it seem like it's just following them around, basically, right?
Yeah, and in fact, Jarrett Reddick is the voice of the narrator who's quote unquote, documenting our office life. So a little crossover there as well. And when you see the show, you might not notice it right away, because I'm wearing this particular hat that most everyone will assume is a Bass Pro Shop hat. But in fact, if you look closely or pause it at the logo or see it ever when it's, because I'm wearing it backwards, it's Bowling for Soup done in the style of Bass Pro Shop. So Jarrett's the narrator's voice, and also I'm wearing a Bowling for Soup hat.
Totally. Just like people getting, subliminal messages coming at them. They don't even realize it. Bass Pro Shop, how cool. Bowling for Soup. I feel like listening to that right now. Just like suddenly out of nowhere. Suggestive advertising. It gets slipped in. No, I'm just kidding. That is so cool. What a coincidence that you get to kind of, metaphorically speaking, you get symbolically, you get to scratch each other's back. I mean, that's what friends are for, man. Some of your best memories are tough times, and some of your, best memories are also going through those and growing and doing some cool things with some friends, right? It sounds like you got some good support teams, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, success is not just what you achieve, but how you achieve it. And, we can't really do anything worthwhile alone. And certainly there's no one to celebrate with if you do. So it's all about, working with friends or becoming friends with the people you work with.
Man, actor, producer, musician, Thomas Nicholas Band is going to be opening for Fast Times June 10th. Get your tickets at the Visalia Fox Theater. The Thomas Nicholas Band will take you back in time to the 90s, and then Fast Times. These guys play at the Whiskey A Go-Go as well, and so historic, the Whiskey. How cool is that? And they're going to be here in Visalia giving you the real experience. So 90s with Thomas Nicholas Band playing kind of frat style, pulling his favorite songs from the American Pie soundtrack, along with some other killer 90s jams too, and into the 80s with Fast Times, the real experience. Spicoli's going to be up there on stage rocking it. It's going to be so cool. 90s, 80s, it's a time machine, and you need to get inside of it. Make it happen. Visalia Fox Theater, June 10th. Get your tickets today. How cool is that show going to be? Speaking of feedback from the audience, Thom, that is what you're getting, right? That feeling when you provide that feeling to them of traveling back in time and having that experience. It really comes back to you up there on stage, right? I mean, they feed you that energy right back, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship, that's for sure. And the more energy they give me, the more I give them. So it's kind of a cyclical sort of thing. And the fun thing is too that because I grew up, listening to in the 90s grunge era, everything that I write, all my original stuff kind of fits in that realm too. So it'll be funny because I'll play the show, and afterwards during the meet and greet, people will be like, "Man, you should have played some more originals," because I caught like that one song you did. I'm like, "Dude, half the songs were originals." They're like, "Oh, really?" So my stuff fits right in line with the time travel as well. So it'll be a fun night, and I am really looking forward to it, man. The Fox Theater is a gorgeous spot.
It is, and to have a relic it's like a pile of gold, basically, from a cultural standpoint. If you have a Fox Theater in your town from back in the day when they were everywhere, and most cities have renovated them for shows and stuff like that, not just for movies. I went to the Visalia Fox Theater and saw Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2 back in the day when it was still a movie theater. And it's transformed it's an awesome venue for, killer bands and shows. I saw ZZ Top there. Very cool. Lots of great shows there. And your show included June 10th. How can people get tickets, Thom? Obviously go to Hanford Fox Theater, but do you have some sort of another way or a preferred way, or is that just the best way? Go to Hanford Fox Theater's website. Or,
Visalia.
Visalia. Did I say Hanford? I had Hanford on the brain. Yeah, Visalia. Yeah, sending people the wrong way. I'm sorry. Visalia Fox Theater. So do people just go to their website, or what's the best way to get tickets?
You can do that. You can Google search it. You can, if you're on any of my social platforms, my handle everywhere is TinBand, TIN Band, BAND. So I've got links, to all tickets for all my upcoming shows that have been announced right on there. So there's lots of ways to get it. I mean, you can't go wrong. You type in Fast Times, Visalia, June 10th, you're going to find us. Get your tickets.
Get your tickets. You heard the man. Get your tickets right now. What the hell, man? Get on it. Let's go. Move. Those tickets are going to get sold out. It's a big show because everyone who went last time loved it. So I know it's going to get sold out. So folks, you got to go get your tickets now while there are still tickets available. Visalia Fox Theater, June 20th, Fast Times in the 80s, but kicking it off in the 1990s, frat style, pulling the favorite jams from the American Pie soundtrack. Also, the Thomas Nicholas Band, hosted and fronted by Thomas Ian Nicholas, the man on the Rock Stories with the Brumster episode today. Thank you for being here. You're also an actor. You've got a TV series coming up. You're working on your 7th album. The TV series coming up on a premium streaming network. That's to be announced. Underdeveloped. This summer in July. Oh, that's going to be good, right? That is going to be awesome. It's a mockumentary of a production company, kind of like The Office, but a different set of characters, different challenges, different storylines. It's going to be hilarious. Check it out coming up this summer, TV series. Wow, you do it all. Musician, producer, you're on the big screen on the movie, acting as far as that's concerned in the movies. And then in addition, you're doing a TV series. You do it all, Thom. You do it all, man.
Yeah, the only thing I don't do is sleep, so I just replace that with coffee, and then everything's fine.
There you go. There you go. Well, Juan Valdez is your favorite friend, right? Oh, that's awesome. You know who I'm talking about, the coffee guy with the donkey. We all know who Juan Valdez is. When you think of coffee when we were kids, that's what we would think of because it was the U-Band commercial that was on all the time. And I mentioned that to someone who was younger the other day, not even thinking about it. Yeah, Juan Valdez and the coffee, because he was telling a coffee story. And for some reason it was appropriate. And he's like, Juan who? And I'm like, oh, wow, they must not have had a commercial for Mr. Valdez in a while. How exciting, man. That's awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun. So, folks, get your tickets June 10th, Visalia Fox Theater. Rocking with Thomas Ian Nicholas from the Thomas Nicholas Band will be there, along with 1980 superstars led by Spicoli on stage. Very cool. Fast Times, taking you back to the 80s soundtrack. And American Pie. I mean, what can be more American than having some American Pie on June 10th in Visalia, California at the Visalia Fox Theater? Right, Thom?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's fun, too, because it's kind of like I'm playing my favorite songs from the American Pie soundtrack, and then you're going to see Spicoli get on stage with the Fast Times Band.
You can't beat it, man. You can't beat it. Thom, thanks for rocking with us today, man. We'll look forward to, seeing you up on the stage and then continuing with your TV series coming up and anything else you got going. Let the Brumpster know, and I'll be happy to share it again with the audience. Thanks for being here today. Friendly reminder to our listeners again, how can they contact you if they'd like to find out more about your upcoming events?
Well, you can pick your favorite social media and type in TIN Band. No spaces, no dots, no underscores, just TIN Band. That's my handle on all social media platforms. So pick your poison and drop me a line or a comment, and I try to stay in touch with people as much as possible on those platforms. So hopefully I'll see you online, and then I would like it more if I saw you in person at one of our shows, so we can actually live life together.
Very cool. Experience it, man, in person. Real people, real connection, some oxytocin. I love it. That connection, man. In person, there's nothing that beats it. Thanks for rocking with us today, Thom. We appreciate you being on Rock Stories with the Brumpster, bro.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show, and thanks for letting me walk down my own fandom memory lane of my rock star experiences as an audience member.
Oh, man, from the fans' perspective, and no better super fan than you, Thom. Thanks for being on the show today. Hang on the line for engineers, my friend.
You got it, man.
Awesome. Thomas Nicholas Band, led by Thomas Ian Nicholas. Go to the show. Best songs from the American Pie soundtrack, 1990s. Getting into Time Machine and then going back to the 80s on the same night with Fast Times, an 80s rock show experience. All at the Visalia Fox Theater. Visalia Fox Theater, go to their website and get tickets June 20th. Get the tickets before they sell out. June 20th to go see the show. Awesome. It's going to be a good time. Visalia Fox Theater, June 20th. Rock Stories with the Brumpster, real rock stories from the fans' perspective at rockradio559.com and at the Rock Stories with the Brumpster YouTube channel for all past episodes. It's real rock stories from the fans' perspective. I am the Brumpster with two M's. Thanks for listening to Rock Stories with the Brumpster.